Welcome back, True Seeker. Gematria School Day 4. Let me check on the chat room and see if people have been able to enter. Make sure we're running here. In case you're new and you're watching right now and you're wondering how to get in the chat, you should be looking at this screen. You've probably hit the play button. What you're going to want to do is click on this YouTube link or this link right here, and it should load this window. And in this window, you should be able to see the live chat. So hello, Crystal. Hello, Trisha. Hello, Jane. Thank you for being here. Sports Gematria is here. Looks like we're just getting started. Tonight is the night that people who are signed up at lower tiers are going to be able to join. So I imagine the chat room will get pretty active. And I thought, since we'll have a lot of people here who are new tonight, we should talk about an important topic, and that is cipher practice, because I see a lot of people asking how the different ciphers work. So I thought tonight we could go over the ciphers very thoroughly and make sure we understand each cipher. If you have the Letters and Numbers ebook, again, if you're signed up at the $11 tier, you should have a copy. It's free to download as a member of the Patreon at the $11 tier. I've posted the link several times to download the book. I'll post that link again after tonight's class. But for tonight's class, some supplementary reading, Chapter 4. It covers the ciphers outside of the base 4, teaches you a lot of interesting qualities about these ciphers. So Chapter 4, good supplementary reading for what we're going to be discussing tonight. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Miss Mildred. Hello, Mark. I'm looking forward to that homework, Trisha. I saw a couple people sent me their homework this week. Awesome. Glad you guys did that. Appreciate the effort. All right. Hopefully more people come in here sooner than later, trying to give people a few minutes to get in. While we're waiting for people, for those of you who like to decode the Bible, just something warm-up talking point before we get to the lesson. This website, Bible Gateway, a lot of cool things you can do with this website to search the Bible. You can choose what version of the Bible you want. And if you've read my book, you know about some of these notes. But just doing these types of searches, I'm always learning new things. Something I talk about in the book is how in the New International Version of the Bible, there's exactly 62 mentions of the garden, 52 in the Old Testament and 10 in the New Testament. And the reason that's so interesting is because in our most pure cipher of our base ciphers, which is using the alphabetic order and the rules of numerology, Garden of Eden is 62, which again is a story from the book of Genesis, the first book of the Torah, which is 62, where God's name is Elohim, 62. And if you do these searches for key words, you can uncover a lot of really interesting things. So for those of you who like to decode the Bible, I recommend doing these searches for key words and phrases and looking how they line up with the book overall. And also looking in other versions, because the count of words is different in other versions. I always like to look at the King James Version and the New International Version, the NIV. And like, for example, in the King James Version, something that always stood out to me was that in Revelation, the final book of the Bible, the word heaven is used exactly 55 times. And that seems really interesting to me because the word heaven with the alphabetic order is 55. Of course, as we know, when you flip the alphabetic order around, the word God is 55. And this study being dualistic with the alphabetic order, Satan's also 55. So anyway, just a little warm-up thought. If you like decoding the Bible, I definitely recommend using BibleGateway.com to do these types of searches for keywords. You'll make all sorts of fascinating discoveries. So take a peek here at the chat, see if a few more people are arriving here. Good morning, Crypto. Hello, Jay Quest. Well, I think as more people come in, they'll have to get caught up. but we've given them about 5 minutes. So let's get on with the lesson. Oh, Jay Quest has something. Election date is 116. Could this be another 911 just saying? Well, 116 has meaning of its own, but you know, the election day will probably keep us busy enough. Who knows at this day and age if we'll have another controversial story, maybe a shooting at a polling place, some divisive rhetoric to work people up. You just never know the way the stories come at us, you know, at a never increasing rate. But last week we covered some of the upcoming elections. That was the focus of last week's lesson. So before we get on with tonight's lesson, talking about the ciphers outside of the base ciphers, for those of you who've missed the first 3 weeks of class, for a little review, very quickly, things we've covered. What is gematria? Again, it's the practice of coding numbers and words, a practice that comes from Kabbalah. Kabbalah, a mysticism that has a belief God created the world by merging the letter with the number. In our lesson on the Tree of Life, it's already shown up in a big way in the news in light of the Tree of Life mass shooting. But again, Tree of Life is the physical model from Kabbalah. So things we've discussed, we've talked about other parts of the ancient mystery religions, which include Kabbalah, Kundalini, about the spiritual ascension up the human vertebrae, Hermeticism, the 7 principles of Hermeticism, which we're going to cover in greater detail in weeks ahead. One of those important principles to this study is the principle of vibration. Everything in this world, every number, every letter, every shape, every symbol, every color, it carries a vibration, and those vibrations have influence on us as human beings. We've also discussed alchemy, about perfecting states of mind. We've talked about the significance of the gematria behind the ancient mystery religions and the Abrahamic religions. Again, the Abrahamic religions are Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all based in the Holy Bible. And the ancient mystery religions are Kabbalah, Kundalini, Hermeticism, alchemy. In weeks past, we talked about the first book of the Holy Bible, the first book of the Torah, Genesis, all that's coded within, the significance of Genesis 3:22, the 78th verse. If you've seen my work this week on the Tree of Life synagogue shooting, we've been talking a lot about 78. And again, that just proves the relevance of understanding this code. By having awareness of this knowledge, opens your eyes to a lot of things that are put before you more often than you do realize. You know, you learn about this knowledge one day, the next day you see how it's in action. And if you missed the opening night gematria lesson, really important one, the week 1 lesson. If you're signed up to the $11 tier, you can go back and watch all of these lessons. But we went over the 4 base ciphers very thoroughly, made sure we understood the intricacies. So tonight we'll quickly review the 4 base ciphers, what's important about those, and then we'll also talk about the other ciphers. Because it's important to understand how all the ciphers work. Otherwise, you can confuse yourself with your decodes. And every week when I do my radio show and people call in and they'll say, this word overlapped in this cipher, this cipher, this cipher, and this cipher, I'll think, well, yeah, that's sort of interesting. But the reason they overlap in all of those ciphers is because of the letters that are within the word. And we'll get to what I'm talking about as we move along. So before we get into tonight's lesson, again, something that you need to have solid understanding of in this study because it's so important. Prime number relationships, triangular number relationships, Fibonacci numbers. All very important and all available on gematrinator.com. We'll talk more about these as we go on tonight. But all things that we've covered so far, plus more, and things you want to be well aware of. So that said, we're going to be using the Gematrinator calculator a lot tonight. As we go through each cipher, I will stop before we move on to the next one just to make sure there's not any questions. So I'll let you know when I'm looking at the chat. But I just want to make sure we have clarity as we move along. So again, just to quickly review our 4 base ciphers. I have a feeling most of you understand these very well, but just want to make sure. English ordinal is the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4. This is the dark green cipher on the left. All the way up to Z is 26. So our cipher furthest on the left, the alphabetic order. A is 1 up to Z is 26. The next cipher, the dark blue, is the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Z is 26. In numerology, 26 breaks down to 2 plus 6 is 8. Y is the 25th letter, so imagine what Y should be here before I punch in Y. What is the numerology of 25? 2 plus 5? It's 7. X is the 24th letter, so the numerology of 24 is 2 plus 4 is 6, right? Very intuitive. And remember, no matter what word you spell, with the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, our first 2 ciphers, let me just get these out of the way just so that we're clear here. These 2 ciphers, no matter what word you spell, in numerology terms, they're always going to break down to the same digit. So as you can see, Adam, for example, 19, 1 plus 9 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. The numerology is 1. Here, Adam is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. This will be true for any word, any letter. It's the mathematical check, you know. John, 47, breaks down to 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 is 1 plus 1 is 2. John, 20, 2 plus 0 was 2. They're always going to break down to the same single digit. The reason that this shows 11 here, Derek set up the calculator so that if it breaks down to a master number, it's not reduced. Because remember, in numerology, if something breaks down to 11 or 22, you don't have to reduce it past those numbers. You have the choice to stay at 11 or 22. If you do break it down, 11 is 1 plus 1 is 2. 22, I just put a V here because it's the 22nd letter, just so you can see how the calculator works. You notice it doesn't break it down past 22, but you can do the numerology in your head. 2 plus 2 is 4, just like how V breaks down to 4. So 2 of our base ciphers, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, they always will break down to the same single digit number. And then our other 2 ciphers are the reverse alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. So if we punch in A here, it's in reverse. So A is the last letter in this order. That's why A is 26. And of course, if we put in Z, it's 1. So B would be 25, right? The numerology of 25 is 7. This is the reverse alphabetic order with the numerology. All the same rules, just going in reverse. And the other things we need to know about the base ciphers. I'm just going to pull up our reduction cipher, our most pierced cipher. I'm going to punch in an S. S is the 19th letter. The reason S becomes 1 is because the numerology of 19 is 1 plus 9 is 10, and then 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. S is the only letter A through Z that you have to reduce 2 times to get to a single digit. So, because of that, there's a rule with S. S can actually be worth 10 as well. Again, S is 19. 19 breaks down to 1 plus 9 is 10. And then you can break it down one more time. 1 plus 0 is 1. So that's one of our rules with S. We talk about that a lot with Washington. You know, whoops, you got to spell things right. That's crucial. Washington, we talk about this a lot with the example of Washington. Washington has gematria of 49, also like Scottish in the base ciphers. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry headquartered in Washington, D.C. And then Washington also 58 when you count S as 10. Washington was part of Freemasonry, which has its headquarters in Washington. You know? And notice when you use the exception on the S in Freemasonry, it's 67. One of the most important studies in Freemasonry is alchemy. Alchemy is about, spell it right. Alchemy is about perfecting your mind. And, you know, if you join Freemasonry, what you'll learn, and again, Freemasonry is not all evil. There's plenty of people in Freemasonry who've just joined because they want community. They want to learn about this secret knowledge. They're curious. So as much as I go after Freemasonry in my work, remember, I'm going for the people at the top. But Freemasonry at lower levels, a lot of people say, well, I joined Freemasonry because I heard it could help me perfect myself as a man. Alchemy, it's about, perfecting your mental state, improving your mental state. So it's not an accident that alchemy is 67 and Freemasonry, when we take into account, is also 67. So, going to get rid of the S exception. The other thing to know about the base ciphers is the letter K. K in reduction is 2, but K is also the 11th letter. And 11 is the master number that does not need to be reduced. So if you spell out a word that has a K in it, like the name Kevin, hold on, I don't want to use Kevin. I'll use kind. We'll talk about Kevin in a second. Kind, notice, with reduction, kind is 20. When you take into account K as the master 11, then kind is plus 9 more, right? K is 2 here, K is 11 here. So the master numerology makes kind 29. But realize, when we do these things, it never changes the root numerology. 20 breaks down to 2 plus 0 is 2. 29 breaks down to 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 becomes 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to put back in, actually, I'll do it this way. The other letter that has a rule in reduction gematria is V, because V is the 22nd letter. If you reduce 22 all the way, 2 plus 2 is 4. If you take into account the master numerology, it stays 22. And again, these rules come from numerology, where you do not have to break down 11 or 22. So if you write the word Victor, gematria of 33, or with the master V numerology, 51. And if you're going to, you should always be fair when you decode. So if you wrote a word that did have a K and a V, like Kevin, and you're going to observe the master numerology of Kevin, then you should make K11 and you should make V22. If you're not going to observe the master numerology, then you should break them all down. So K is 2, V is 4. Hopefully that's clear. The point is to be consistent. So those are the rules with reduction gematria using the alphabetic order. With reverse, it's the exact same thing. So let's bring up the reverse cipher. The 19th letter in reverse is H. So if a word has an H, so I'll just write the name Hector. Hector, if you break it all the way down, H becomes 1. If you take into account the rule for it being the 19th letter, where 1 plus 9 becomes 10, 1 plus 0 becomes 1, then the H will be 9 more. So you notice, now Hector's 39. Okay? So these are things to remember when you decode. Because when you look at the base ciphers, you're not taking into account these exceptions for the 19th letter or the 11th letter or the 22nd letter. And again, the exact same thing. Also in reverse, you can observe the master numerology. In reverse, P becomes the 11th letter. So if you write a P in reduction, P is 2, but if you take into account that it's 11 in reverse, then it has the master numerology of 11. And E is the 22nd letter in reverse. So E can be 4 or 22. And remember what's so interesting that we've talked about. Jeremy made this big discovery in recent days, that the United States of America was named the United States on September 9th, the day leaving 113 days left in the year. So I'll just write in September 9th here, just so you can see this. September 9th, the day leaving 113 days left in the year. The United States named as such on this day in history. The day leaving 113 days, September 9th, 1776. It changed its name from the United Colonies to the United States of America. And look at how perfect that is when you observe the master numerology. And what else is interesting about United States equaling 77? Its nation's capital is on the 77th meridian. And just to bring back the base ciphers, remember, when you write out the United States of America, it sums to 99. Again, it was given this name on 9/9, the day leaving 113 days left in the year. So this is how we can be certain that it's not an accident the way these ciphers work and how cleverly they're thought out. Again, the rules of numerology are much older than the English language. So we can see that all of this understanding of numbers and numerical systems, it was cleverly coded into English. And think about what the United States of America is. This nation that was built, well, a lot of people did speak German at the beginning of the United States, but English was obviously made the official language for a reason. And, you know, with regards to Germany, don't overlook Bavaria in light of the Bavarian Illuminati. Again, the Bavarian Illuminati was established May 1st, 1776 with 13 families. 5 plus 1 plus 17 plus 76 is 99. 99 established with 13 families. 1399. Think about the U.S., 13 colonies, 13 stripes. And just in case you didn't see me cover this before, from May 1st, 1776, the date the Bavarian Illuminati was established, to September 9th, 1776, the date the United States of America was given its name, 132 days. And why does that matter? Look at United States of America. You just write it this way. I'm missing something here. Oh, I'm missing an E. That's what it was. United States of America, 132. So how perfect is all of that? You know, it's too perfect. Another little intricacy here. If you don't count the span of days, it's 131 days, which is the 32nd prime number. Again, this is why you want to know your prime numbers at Gematria. If you go to Tools and Number Properties and type in 131, it'll tell you, yes, it's prime, it's the 32nd. And what is it about America and 32? In our most pure cipher, America is 32. 1776 in numerology is 32. No? And look at all the numbers in America. 50, like the 50 states and 1,000,000 territories. 32, important degree there in Freemasonry. 139, Freemasonry equals 139. 49, Scottish equals 49. A nation founded by many Scottish Rite Freemasons. So let me come back to the chat. Let me see if we're clear on the base ciphers. Well, nothing wrong with 99. You know, there again, the whole study is dualistic, so there's good and bad to all numbers, unless it just makes you think of your ex. Welcome, Hickok. Better late than never. Yeah, we're gonna go over all of the ciphers outside of the base ciphers. We're just warming up, revisiting the base ciphers to make sure everybody has the intricacies of the base ciphers down. I believe in review. You know, takes review to get things to stick in the old noggin. Everyone clear on the base ciphers, or are there any questions right now? Do the base ciphers use the S and H rules? Okay, so I believe I understand your question, asking if these ciphers right here use the rules for S and H. No, they do not. Alphabetic order, the pure numerology, just breaking every single thing down to a single digit with the alphabetic order, is the full reduction cipher. And the reverse full reduction is, again, using the rules of numerology, but none of the master numerology and no rules for the 19th letter. So these base ciphers don't use any of those rules. To use those rules, you have to come up to the ciphers and you have to look. The way Derek named the calculator, single reduction, if you click that, that's the cipher that's going to take into account S as 10. You see? Ignore the reverse for now. That's the cipher that's going to make S 10. If you want the exception for the 19th letter is 10 in reverse, you have to go to reverse single reduction. And then it's the letter H that's the 19th letter, which has the rule for 10. So you have to add these on the calculator. And out of the exceptions, out of the majority of the research I do, the exceptions that I'll use the most are the ones on the 19th letter, you know. But again, they're all important. So you have to add those in. And then just coming back to the regular alphabetic order, if you want the rules for the master numbers 11 and 22, well, there's two things to know here. Full reduction KV, if you click that one, then it's going to make, in your calculations, if there's an S in the word, it's going to keep the S as 1, but use the master numerology for K, which becomes 11, and V, which becomes 22. If you want the S to be counted as 10, and the K is 11, and the V is 22, then you have to click this one. And a word I always think of that takes into account all of these exceptions that's coming up here is Thanksgiving. If you look up the history of Thanksgiving, I believe they say the Pilgrims left on September 6th. Thanksgiving, Pilgrims departed September 6th. I believe this is correct. Voyage to the Mayflower. Which one is it? They departed on the Mayflower September 6th. So that was something I noticed a long time ago doing this research. I said, that's really interesting. So if you take into account all the exceptions on Thanksgiving, it pays tribute to that 96. So if you want the exceptions, you have to come to the cipher and you have to toggle the right options. In reverse, it's the same thing. Reverse single reduction will get you the 19th letter is 10. Reverse full reduction will get you the master letters is 11 and 22. Reverse single reduction will get you the 19th letter is 10. The 11th letter is 11 and the 22nd letter is 22. So are we clear now? Okay, looks like we're all good. All right, so those are the base ciphers. So that was some review. We already covered that in week 1, but hey, it's week 4. We got to make sure these things are sticking. All right, so let's start talking about other ciphers. And you know what? We'll just go through the other ciphers in terms of the way Derek has the calculator set up. So I'm just going to get rid of the base ciphers. If you remember, to use the calculator, you just click the boxes if you want to get rid of ciphers. Now we have no ciphers down here. So all of these that we've covered so far, alphabetic order, rules of numerology, and then the 3 exceptions here. The next cipher to look at is English extended. What is this cipher? Notice that on the Gematria calculator, if you scroll down the screen, past where you type in the word, past where you get the value, you get the cipher for how this works. And you'll notice A through I, the first 9 letters are 1 through 9. Then J's 10, but notice it starts counting by 20. K's 20, L's 30, M's 40, N's 50, O's 60. Keeps counting by 10 until you get to R. Then when you get to S, it's 100. Then you start counting by 100. And the reason for this chart is if you go back and you look at the most used cipher for Hebrew gematria, it's set up this same way. 1 through 9, then begins counting by 10, then begins counting by the hundreds. So in the most traditional form of gematria in Hebrew, where this originates, this is how the cipher is set up. Also, in Greek isopsephy, another language that encoded the alphabet with numbers, this is their most traditional cipher for their alphabetic order. So English extended is paying tribute to these old ciphers. And something that jumped out about when I first started experimenting with this cipher, something that jumped out at me right away was the word religion. Because the New Testament of the Bible was written by the Greeks. And again, the Greeks practiced this code of letters and numbers. In their language, it was isopsephy. Instead of gematria, they called it isopsephy. And the Greeks also wrote the New Testament. The New Testament is 260 chapters. And when I saw that religion was 260, I said, wow, how interesting. This has to be something. Because, I've only been working with these ciphers for Oh, geez, time's flown by. Not even 2 years now. Probably more like a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer than a year and a half, maybe like a year and 9 months, 8 months, something like that. But when I first got my hands on these ciphers, I just started experimenting with just keywords and seeing what stood out. And this was something that jumped out at me immediately. I said, that can't be a coincidence. And then so I started thinking some more. And before I go on to my next example, just think about what 260 is. Remember what we learned when we were studying numbers? When you write out a number that already has meaning, like 26, this number that symbolizes God, when you put a 0 at the end of the number, it adds this divine quality. That's part of numerology. So it's like you're making 26, this number that's already divine, even more divine. And again, this is the number of chapters in the New Testament that was written by the Greeks. So another thing that jumped out at me right away was Gutenberg, the name Gutenberg. The first printed Bibles were Gutenberg Bibles, and they were 66 books in length. And of course, the 66th book, Revelation, teaches about 666, the number of the beast. 666, the number of the beast. It also says that the person with wisdom will know how to calculate the number of the beast. So I feel that we're all the wiser, all of us here, for learning this knowledge, you know? And long before I knew about this, the name Gutenberg jumped out at me because when I first began the study, the cipher that I looked at the most was the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And what I noticed was Gutenberg and Holy Bible were both 45. And 45 is the 9th triangular number. Remember, triangular numbers are where when you add 1 through 9 together, for example, here it equals 45. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 is 45. Holy Bible, 9 letters. 9, very special. Pythagoras, said to be the father of numerology, thought 9 symbolized God. And anyway, you know, I studied this cipher for years before I learned reverse gematria. And when I learned reverse, I started going over the words that I knew had all this meaning. And when I saw things like this, that Holy Bible had this symmetry, that when you flip the alphabetic order around, and Holy Bible was also 45, it blew my mind. And then when I typed in things like Gutenberg, and I saw that it was 45 forwards and backwards, it blew my mind even more. And then realizing that the Bible's full of hermetic knowledge and seeing things like this, it blew my mind even more. But something else that I always thought was interesting about Gutenberg Bible is that when you write it out, it sums to 66, like how the Gutenberg Bibles were 66 books in length. And again, it's Revelation that teaches about 666, the number of the beast, which is 66. Number of a man, when you flip the alphabetic order around, is 66. And if you write it out as the number of a man, it's also 66. And remember, mankind's made on the 6th day. And with the alphabetic order, you know, mankind is also 66. Like how in Genesis 6:6, God regrets making mankind. So anyway, we're talking about the English extended cipher and the reason it's significant. Of course, there's many other things that are important in English extended gematria, but I'm just giving you 2 simple examples that are easy to grasp. And in case you're not aware of this function of the gematria calculator, if you wanted to look for other things that sum to a certain number, what you can do, and realize when you do these searches, it's best to just limit it down to the one cipher you want. So like we want to look at what a certain number is in English extended. What the gematria database does is it saves everybody's entries. And let's just say we wanted to find other things that sum to 260 in English extended. You can type in that number and then click match. And down below, it will generate words that sum to that in the cipher. And realize you'll scroll through and a lot of these things might seem meaningless. You know, it's not like every single word is perfectly thought out for each cipher. You know, so some values will be meaningless, but you can automatically see where the significance is of religion in 260. There's a real world example. And whenever when I'm looking for words and numerical value, I'm always looking for meaning behind the numbers besides just them being coded in the word. You know, I always want to know why the word sums to that. And again, in week 2, we talked about the meaning of the numbers. So religion's a good example. Again, 260 chapters in the New Testament, plus we know what 26 means. But you can scan through. There's usually a lot of things in the database to look at. And, you know, sometimes the searches, you know, they might seem mostly meaningless. Floods is sort of interesting. I mean, the Bible, story of the flood, obviously has a lot to do with God. A lot of this knowledge goes back to Egypt and the continent of Africa. That's interesting. So I just like to take notes. Sometimes I like to search and look for other words that have paired meaning. Because remember, the purpose of gematria is finding words that have relationships and numerical overlap. So this is something you can do with the Gematrinator calculator. And realize there might be a word that needs to be in here that maybe to date somebody hasn't used. So that's why it's important that more people use the Gematrinator calculator. Maybe somebody's aware of a word that should be in here, and the day it is in here, it's the day it'll show up in this search. So, you know, what other thing did we look at? We looked at 666. Gutenberg was 666. Oh yeah, here's an example that I love. You see how Fox equals 666 in this cipher? Long before I was aware of this cipher, I thought this was interesting about the word Fox. You know, in reduction gematria, I'm just going to write out Fox. In reduction gematria, F is the 6th letter, so F reduces to 6. O is the 15th letter. 15's numerology is 1 plus 5 is 6. X is the 24th letter, so 2 plus 4 is 6. So Fox breaks down to 666 in reduction, but in Gutenberg, it is 666. And, you know, another thing that's like that is the word new. New, with the English extended cipher, is 555. With the rules of numerology, N's the 14th letter, so N becomes 5, E's the 5th, W's the 23rd, so 2 plus 3 becomes 5. And think about the new world order, and think about how 5 symbolizes creation, like something new. And think about the 555-foot Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., at least 555 feet above ground. Of course, there's another 111 feet below ground. So that's English extended gematria. Now let's talk about Francis Bacon gematria. Francis Bacon, the way this cipher works is based, let me get rid of, Francis Bacon is entirely dependent on capital letters. So notice, lowercase a is 1, but uppercase a is 27. For each uppercase letter, you add plus 26. So lowercase z is 26, uppercase z is 52. Francis Bacon is entirely based in capital letters. And, you know, Zenith of the Alpha, for years he'd been talking about how capitalized Trump sums to 218. And that was long before Donald Trump put out his emergency presidential alert at 2:18 Eastern. So, capital letters, so important here. What's interesting is when you do things like Tree of Life, you know, the important thing in Kabbalah, that's the 78th verse of Genesis, it sums to 153. And the Tree of Life is supposed to be this physical model for Kabbalah to help the student of Kabbalah better understand God. And remember what 153 is. It is the 17th triangular number, meaning if you add 1 through 17, it equals 153. Just coming back to our base ciphers, when we use the reverse alphabetic order, Holy Bible, which pays tribute to the Tree of Life in the 78th verse of Genesis, Holy Bible is 153. So is the Bible. You know, so is Jesuit order, who are very much aware of this code of letters and numbers and do everything by it. So anyhow, capital letters, very important in Francis Bacon gematria. And the thing is, when you start to use these ciphers, you'll just notice things, each day that you never noticed before. For example, just the other day, I typed in White House. I wanted to see what White House was in Francis Bacon with capital, taking into account Francis Bacon gematria. And I laughed when I saw it was 185 because I was like, oh, funny. That is the name of the sitting president right now. Donald John Trump has that gematria of 185. And if you missed my recent decode on the death of his uncle, see, Donald John Trump's just 185 using the alphabetic order. When you flip the alphabetic order around, mathematics is 185. But if you missed my decode on the death of Donald Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, who was born August 21st, 21/8, his death had everything to do with the number 185. So Francis Bacon gematria, all about capital letters. And before I come back to the chat and make sure we have any questions, I just want to cover what we call Frank Baconis gematria, which is another cipher that's based on capital letters, but using slightly different rules. So again, Francis Bacon, it's all about the capitals. Frank Baconis, it's all about the capitals, but it's a different cipher arrangement. If you type in lowercase, oh, I typed in reverse Frank Baconis. Derek's added all these reverse ciphers. I don't tinker around with a lot of these reverse ciphers. Again, I'll remind you, Faith Giovanni, who put out her book, The Divine Triangle, educating about this knowledge of gematria, where she only teaches about one cipher. She only teaches about this one, alphabetic order and rules of numerology. In that book, she mentions that there's over 100 ciphers in use with the alphabetic order. Derek's pretty much taken every cipher we're aware of and created a reverse cipher for it. But Frank Baconis, the way it works is, again, it's based on capital letters. So it starts with capital A. Capital A is 1. Then the next letter is lowercase a, which is 2. Then capital B is 3. Then lowercase b is 4. Capital C is 5. Lowercase c is 6. And something that really jumps out in this cipher to me is that the word time, when you capitalize the T, is 93. As we know, this number has everything to do with time. They tell us the sun is 93 million miles away. The only planet with ordinal gematria using the alphabetic order that sums to 93 is Saturn, which is considered the keeper of time to the occult. Something else that jumps out to me about this cipher, and there's plenty of things, but one is that baseball, when the B's lowercase, is 108. Just like how there's 108 double stitches on a baseball, like how Major League is 108. So that's Francis Bacon gematria and Frank Baconis gematria. They're both based in capital letters. And I should also show you something. How many cards are in a deck of cards? If you capitalize the C, the word card is 52. That's Francis Bacon. So a lot of little neat things there with both ciphers. Tonight, I'm just making sure that you understand how to use all of these ciphers so that when you do your decodes, you know what you're looking at. A lot of people, they'll call me on the thing and they'll say, hey, I just typed in the word apple and I noticed that with the English ordinal and Francis Bacon, they have the exact same gematria. And I'll say, well, I'm glad you're using the gematria calculator, but the reason those two words have the same gematria is because you didn't use a capital letter. I said, if you put in a capital A, you'll notice that apple is no longer the same in English ordinal and Francis Bacon. So that's why you want to be sure that you're using the ciphers correctly. Otherwise, you might mislead yourself and think you found some great connection that's really not, anything special. Another thing is people will call in and they'll have a word just like apple. And they'll say, I noticed that apple's the exact same in reduction, single reduction, full reduction KV, and single reduction KV. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. It is the same in all ciphers. And the reason it's the same in all ciphers is because there's no S in the word apple. There's no K in the word apple. There's no V in the word apple. So again, you have to understand how the ciphers work. Otherwise, you'll start getting excited about things that actually aren't that exciting. All right, let me go to the chat, make sure we're clear on Francis Bacon and Frank Baconis. Huh. Sports Gematria is on it. He made a connection right away with the player Eli Apple, who was drafted by the New York Giants when their quarterback was Eli Manning, and New York's the Big Apple. And now he gets traded to. Did Eli Apple get traded to the Saints? Eli Manning's father's team? I think he did. I see somebody's doing some work on the Breeders' Cup. All right, just making sure we're all clear on the Francis Bacon and the Frank Baconis ciphers. All right, Lack and P. Yeah, Gematria School. Right now, we're making sure everybody's clear on the foundation. So, all right. It looks like nobody has any questions there, so I believe we're clear on these ciphers. Satanic Gematria. What is Satanic Gematria? Again, what sets this apart from ordinal is just that the alphabetic order starts with A is 36, and it just counts up from there. B's 37, C's 38, all the way up to Z is 61. So A begins with 36. And remember what 36 is. 666 is the 36th triangular number. And the thing that's mind-blowing about Satanic Gematria is when you write out the cipher name, Satanic Gematria sums to 666. So, 666, the 36th triangular number. Many interesting things in this cipher. You know, something that jumped out right away was the number 319, which had this relationship with killing. There's a lot of suspicious celebrity deaths over the years in connection to this number, including Prince, who had a song called 319 and who ended up dying 319 days after his birthday. You know, just recently, something we talked about, the death of Donald Trump's grandmother, Elizabeth Trump, who died on the date June 6th in the year 66. Elizabeth Trump, 666. In Satanic Gematria. In case you missed that work on Elizabeth Trump's death, I just want you to see the greater riddle and how this also connects to the other ciphers that we're going to talk about tonight. So, Elizabeth Christ Trump was born October 10th, 1880. She died June 6th, 1966. And in case you missed it, this year on October 10th, 2018, she would have turned 138 years old. Remember, Donald Trump equals 138 using the alphabetic order. And the name Trump alone equals 88. The name Elizabeth with the alphabetic order is just like Trump. They both sum to 88. There was that Economist magazine cover from October 10th, 1988. It foreshadowed, you know, an economic problem on this date, 10/10/2018. The Economist cover has a phoenix wearing a gold coin with the word written 10, the number 10 in the year 2018. So, on this day that she would have turned 138 years old, the Dow Jones had its third worst date in history. And we haven't gotten to the cipher yet. It's here in the mathematical. But remember, come back here to the base ciphers. Dow Jones, with the reverse order, has this gematria of 666 when you use the reverse Sumerian. The Dow Jones fell 666 points on the 33rd day of the year this year, February 2nd. And of course, this happened in the month of October, which also sums to 666. So, we see that these things are not an accident. This is evidence of how the people who control this world are working by this code and using these different ciphers in different ways. You know, Elizabeth Trump 666, dying on 66 and 66, and then on the anniversary of her death, while her grandson's the president, the Dow has one of its worst days in history. It was foreshadowed in a magazine cover from '88. So, satanic gematria. Again, the majority of my work, I just stick to the base ciphers, but I am aware of some things in satanic because of how repetitive things are. In satanic gematria, close these other ciphers here. Make sure we just got our eye on the one I'm talking about. Another number that shows up a lot in these murder by number decodes is 213. Comes up again and again. And couldn't help but notice that death was 213 in satanic gematria. So, if you need help seeing the ciphers, again, gematria, you go down below, it shows you the cipher. A is 36 up to Z is 61. In light of satanic gematria summing to 666, what's interesting about 61 is it's the 18th prime number. And 18 factors into 6 plus 6 plus 6. So from beginning to end, the numbers that encompass the cipher, they also have mathematical connections back to 666. All right, are we good on satanic gematria? So Miss Mildred says, guidelines as to when these are relevant. Miss Mildred, I believe that all of the ciphers are relevant. It's, you know, it's a matter of decoding and observing and seeing where they're put into play. And again, like I say in the book and like I say in my videos, if you stick to the 4 base ciphers, you know, you'll see enough. But by understanding these other ciphers, you can pick up on even more tributes that you would otherwise not notice. For example, you know, we wouldn't see the greater riddle of Elizabeth Trump dying on June 6th in the year 66 if we weren't aware of satanic gematria. And something I wonder is if, you know, within the world of secret societies that abide by these codes, if there's certain groups that, you know, prefer a certain cipher and they do their coding primarily by, you know, satanic gematria or English extended gematria. That I don't have the answer to. Perhaps in time, working with this over more years, people coming out of the woodwork who will step up and share what they know will be able to figure out those things. But for now, the purpose of this is to understand what ciphers are out there that we're aware of, how they're used, where their relevance is, and by understanding how the ciphers work, you can begin to build your own connections and make notes. That's very interesting. Somebody had a head injury and then sacred geometry began appearing to them. Huh. Stuart Adamson's suicide. I'll tell you what, when we get to the end of all the ciphers, if everybody's okay with it, we can look at Stuart Adamson's suicide together. And we can even look at it in terms of the other ciphers we covered tonight and see if we add anything else onto it. Okay. I realize some people are leaving probably because they feel that they understand all the ciphers. But again, here at Gematria School, we're making sure that everybody has the foundation. As we move on in the weeks ahead, we'll cover more complicated subjects. But we got to make sure that we understand the ciphers. So we've gone through all of the ciphers in this list. In the reverse list, it's the exact same ciphers, but with the reverse alphabetic order. I'm not going to go through those. I think you get it. It's all the same ciphers we covered here, just everything is in reverse. Jewish gematria. Now, again, I'll remind you, Jewish gematria is a really important cipher. There's a film that came out in 2014 that's about a half-hour long. This is the cipher they use in that film. Jewish. Remember the word garden for example, in Jewish gematria sums to 137, like how Kabbalah sums to 137 in Hebrew, like how in the beginning sums to 137 using the alphabetic order, like how 137 is the 33rd prime number in Genesis, equals 33 in our most pure cipher, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Think about where the book of Genesis begins, the story of the garden. And think about the story of the tree of life, which is in tribute to Kabbalah, where in Hebrew, Kabbalah sums to 137. So Jewish gematria, the way this cipher works is just like English extended. I think if I hit this, it'll get rid of, okay, there we go. So the English extended cipher, again, A through I, 1 through 9, just like English extended. But notice what happens. After I, it's no longer J, it's K. And the reason for this is because this is the arrangement of the letters that are used in English when they were in the Latin alphabet. So what Jewish gematria does is it rearranges the letters for how they were in the time of Latin, another numeric alphabet. That's why the letters are in a slightly different arrangement. J is moved near the end of the alphabet, but notice it goes 1 through 9, then it goes 10 through 90, then it goes 100, counts by 100 up to 900. So this is how Jewish gematria cipher works. And when I first began this research, and I learned of the first gematria calculator that I was aware of online, it was gematrix.org. This was before Gematrinator existed. For those of you who don't know, Derek, who built Gematrinator, he actually found my YouTube channel watching some video that I decoded a sports game, and he thought it was a joke. And being the curious person that he was, he just had to put it to the test. And he first built this website as an Excel spreadsheet because Derek has a lot of Excel skills. And I urged him to figure out how to build a website with the Excel database that he built, and he eventually built this website. And he's been adding on to it ever since. But long before Derek came around, when I first learned of a gematria calculator on the web, it was gematrix.org. And if you type in a word here, if you ever use Gematrix, it calculates in 3 ciphers. Jewish gematria, which we're looking at right now. English gematria, which on Derek's calculator is the same as Sumerian gematria, multiplying the alphabetic order times 6. And then simple English gematria, which on Derek's calculator is the dark green cipher, the base ciphers. So anyway, when I discovered this website, I said, oh, well, this must be an important cipher. So I started paying attention in Jewish gematria, and over the years made a lot of important observations. And, you know, if you follow my work, one I talk about all the time is how the name Donald, as in Donald Trump, equals 119, and he was announced as the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, a date that can be written 11/9. And, of course, he also had the commercial talking to digital sheep for CERTA, where they were standing on pillars, sheep 11 and 9, a commercial where he's talking about born to be for the job and wearing the same suit and tie that he wore on election night. So anyway, Jewish gematria, a cipher that reveals many important things. Another thing I talk about often from Jewish gematria is death. Death equals 118, this number that shows up around death all the time. You know, Prince Rogers Nelson, his name equals 118. He died in an elevator, supposedly. Elevators 118 in the base ciphers. His death was connected to vanities. Vanities' cause of death had the 118 gematria, things we saw before Prince passed. But anyhow, a lot of important values in Jewish gematria. And again, by studying these additional ciphers, they just build on to your greater understanding of the subject. You'll see more relevant coding and rituals that you otherwise wouldn't see. Because, I mean, just consider. You look at Donald Trump announced as the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. If you have a mind like mine, you said, oh, really? The Berlin Wall? In light of how much he's been talking about building a wall? You know the base ciphers, right? You type in Berlin Wall. And you go, oh, wow, that's interesting. Berlin Wall equals 45. And then, you know, maybe you catch the 63 and you're like, wait a minute, he did that commercial with the sheep for CERTA. And you go, CERTA equals 63. And then maybe you start wondering, like, is there anything about 63? And you notice that 2016, the year he became president-elect, you know, 2016 is the 63rd triangular number. So it's like, oh, no wonder he did this commercial with Serta. And you've already discovered a lot. But then you realize that in Jewish gematria, Donald equals 119. And then you start thinking deeper and you go, oh, wait a minute. Donald Trump, isn't the hit show about the presidency right now called House of Cards, Trump Card? And then you look at like the name of the president in that show. His name's Francis, 119 and 47. His name's Francis Underwood, if you've never seen the show. Underwood's also 119 and 47. And then you start realizing, no, Trump's 47, Donald's 119 and Jewish. This is how the additional ciphers complement the base ciphers. You can see enough with the base ciphers that you don't even need to see anymore. But again, to just take the study that much further, this is where the additional ciphers pay their dividends. And again, if you want to find more words that have certain connections in the cipher, a great way to do it is just to come to the cipher and do a search. So you can type in Jewish or choose Jewish gematria, type in the number you're looking for and click match and see what comes up. And then you can just search. So, come to the chat. Are we clear on Jewish gematria? Yeah, exactly. Derek's calculator. That's what's awesome about what Derek did. He picked up on all the things I was doing in my research, and then he put it all in one tool that just revolutionized the study. And because of Derek's calculator, it makes it a lot easier for me to do my decodes. Before I had to flip between multiple websites, do a lot more math, and now it's also right there. So it also makes you kind of lazier at this study, but all things good and bad. So. Yes, indeed, the extra ciphers are the icing on the cake. So these other ciphers here in the Jewish tab, these were ciphers that Derek had a theory on. Derek was listening to me say things like, hey, there's a Faith Giovanni book, and she says there's over 100 ciphers out there that are in use. So Derek said, well, wait a minute. If we're reducing letters using the alphabetic order, if Hebrew's reducing letters, why not reduce the Jewish cipher? So that's what Jewish ordinal is. And I don't use these ciphers just because I haven't seen them verified anywhere else besides Derek's theory. But that's not to say that these ciphers are wrong. I mean, he could be entirely right. But what's happening here is he's just taken the same order of the letters in Jewish, and he's just counted 1 up to 27. And notice he used ampersand as a letter. The reason he did that is because once upon a time in the alphabetic order, ampersand was counted as a letter. So this is why it's this way. And the Jewish reduction is just using that same order, but then the rules of numerology. And you'll notice in my decode videos, I don't touch these ciphers. But that is how they work. The cipher that is legit, though, is Jewish gematria. Most definitely legit. And again, I'm not saying these aren't legit. I'm just saying there's not enough verification, so I stay away from them. The Kabbalah ciphers. Okay, let's just start with ALW. This is the most relevant of the Kabbalah ciphers. Here's what's happening here. A is 1, L is 2, W is 3. The cipher is called ALW Kabbalah, right? What's going on here is A is the first letter of the alphabet, right? If you just count the alphabetic order, L's the 12th letter, W's the 23rd letter. So it's counting every 11 letters. It's going from A, the first, to 11 letters later, L, to 11 letters later, W. And then it's wrapping back around the alphabet and going 11 more. X, Y, Z, come after W, right? X, Y, Z, and then H is the 8th letter. So that's 11 letters later. H is the 8th, S is the 19th, so 11 letters later. S is the 19th. So there's 7 more to get to the end and then 4 more to get to D. So that's 11 more. So you see it's just jumping 11, but it's wrapping around the alphabet as it counts. That's how this cipher works. And shoot, I actually haven't thought about this cipher for a minute. I'm trying to think if this is done the same way, just counting with this different order. So Derek found these ciphers on another Gematria website, and he put them in his database. And when he first asked me about them, I said, well, let's just experiment and see if we find anything meaningful. And over time using them, just certain things started to stick out. One of the first things that really jumped out about these ciphers to me is in a lot of them, they'll have overlap. There's even some words where it'll have the same overlap in all 3. But understand, out of these 3 ciphers, the one that shows the most relevance is ALW. But anyway, when I began using these ciphers, something that really jumped out at me was President's Day equaled 187 in both of these. I said, President's Day 187, really? Because what I already knew about 187 in regards to the presidency was with George Washington. George Washington equals 187 with the alphabetic order. Washington, D.C. is 187 with the reverse alphabetic order. We know that George Washington was a member of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which is 187 in our most pure cipher. And the other thing about George Washington is he died December 14th, which is a date that sums to 187. And it's also a date that you can write out as 1214. You know, some people might say the date that way. 1214 is also 187. So understanding the relevance of this cipher and how much this number shows up in Washington, D.C., when I saw that in these Kabbalah ciphers that President's Day was 187, and President's Day is what? About Washington and Lincoln, pretty much. I said, well, there's no way that's a coincidence. And again, there's all sorts of things that will just pop out about these ciphers. What is it? Hold on. Yeah, it's English alphabet. That's what it is. Again, the most significant of these ciphers, and the one that I can explain how the order works, is the ALW Kabbalah. This also jumped out at me, that the English alphabet was 187. Again, a lot of this knowledge and encoding of the language comes from the Torah, which is 187 chapters. So, a little bit trickier ciphers here, but definitely relevant. And again, when you read chapter 4 in my book, touch on a few more things with these ciphers. And again, what I recommend doing is, if you're just trying to advance yourself at this study, you know, what I think is a good way to learn about the ciphers is just do your regular decode with the base ciphers, but say like, you know what, tonight as I decode, I want to look more at these Kabbalah ciphers. I just want to see if anything jumps out, you know? So you're looking at your regular ciphers and, you know, just, you know, let's just say you were researching a man, and I'm just making up his name. His name was Roger Mason. We'll just say you were researching Roger Mason. You might want to just, you know, take notes as you go with the Kabbalah ciphers and see if they end up tying in with what you're already looking at in the base ciphers. And just as you go, you know, maybe for a week, you experiment with the base ciphers, also looking at the Kabbalah ciphers and see if they added to your research, if you found anything meaningful. Because no doubt, all of these ciphers are cleverly thought out, and they are obviously being used by certain groups of people. But again, the reason I stick to the base ciphers when I decode primarily, the main reason is because when I began this research, when I began teaching people, I was only using 2 ciphers, right? I was just using these 2, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And what I was running into was people would come across my work and they'd say, well, this is dumb because you're using 2 ciphers. And I'd say, well, it's not dumb. The 2 ciphers are very relevant. They're interrelated. And I would explain things like this. I'd say, you know, when you write out in the beginning, it's 137. That's what Genesis means. Genesis is 33. I said, how do you code, you know, the number 33 into a word or 2 words? and also coded into a 3-letter name at the same time. You need multiple ciphers to achieve these things. So just from using those ciphers for years and getting all this criticism for using 2 ciphers, I knew, that it's better to just stick to a smaller group to convince people to the relevance of this subject. And when I began using reverse, I thought, oh man, now I'm going to be doubling the amount of ciphers I use. But I already have so many critics for saying just 2. But I just said, well, whatever. I mean, critics, I guess, just aren't going to get it. People who don't want to. I can clearly explain how these 4 ciphers are interrelated and work together in a number of ways. And that's why I stick to it. Because if you start, doing decodes as I do and start pulling in all these ciphers, people will say, well, now you're just using all these ciphers to pick numbers and put a puzzle together that maybe really doesn't go together. And if I was getting criticism like that, I would agree. I'd say, well, there's a relevance to what they're saying. But that said, it's still worth looking at these other ciphers when you do your research just to advance your own understanding. And, that's my dilemma when I present, because I want people to accept this work and not find reasons to dismiss it. But then again, when you're not presenting and you're studying this for your own self-advancement and understanding, this is the way I recommend to do it. If you start like decoding and looking at every cipher at once, you're going to overwhelm yourself. And then you are going to just end up cherry picking. That's why it's best to look at the base ciphers and study a certain group of ciphers, over the course of a week and just see what you find. And again, you can also come back and do the trick I showed you. Look at a specific cipher and do the search to find where the numerical overlap are with the relationships. So, are we good so far? Does anybody have any questions before we move on? I see Sports Gematria says he doesn't use the Jewish ordinal. Yeah, I just don't find the need to use these other ciphers in my decode. So Jeremy says he found a good connection the other day with English extended cipher. He wrote out Super Bowl 16 and it summed to 21-26. And he said in Super Bowl 16, the score was 26-21. So yeah, we do know that they use these additional ciphers in sports. We've seen it a number of times. Great work there, Jeremy. All right, looks like people are clear on the Kabbalah ciphers. The next up are the Sumerian and the reverse Sumerian. And I think a lot of you are clear on these ciphers. So we'll do it like this. Can you close the door? Thank you. Sorry, my lady was distracting me. But anyway, these are important ciphers. When I began teaching, these were the other ciphers I learned thanks to the Gematrix calculator, multiplying times 6. And there's obviously a lot of relevance here. Again, the way English Sumerian works, which at gematrix.org is known as just English Gematria, you just take the alphabetic order and you multiply times 6. So A becomes 6, B becomes 12, C becomes 18. The first letter that really jumps out as just an individual letter is G. Think about G on the Freemason logo. G on the Freemason logo, 42. And what does Freemason equal in our most pure cipher? Of course, it equals 42. Also, think about the G in terms of the Freemason logo. What's surrounding the G on the Freemason compass? Or excuse me, what's surrounding the G in the Freemason logo? It's being surrounded by a compass and a square. Instruments of geometry, instruments of mathematics. And just with the alphabetic order, math is 42. Also, consider that the Freemasons have their headquarters in Washington, D.C. D.C. becomes 42. And again, Washington, the state, not D.C., but Washington State, where I live, it's the 42nd state in order of statehood. Of course, George Washington, a Freemason. So a lot of little intricacies with Sumerian gematria. And you'll notice every year, if you pay attention to the NBA finals in the NBA, they'll pay tribute to the number 666. Basketball game is 666. The NBA finals is 666. Important cipher that gets used in a lot of different ways. So Sumerian gematria is just taking the alphabetic order and multiplying times 6. The other one is just when you use the reverse alphabetic order, it too has its complementary cipher, multiplying by 666. We just saw in recent months the tribute to the Dow Jones collapsing by the numbers in October, which has always been a bad month for the market, and the Dow Jones historically. So Sumerian gematria, it applies to the alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order, just multiplying by 6. And just something I meant to cover earlier with Francis Bacon gematria. Hold on. Just to go back to Francis Bacon, our cipher where we take into account capitals. Look at the letters BC in Francis Bacon. 59. Remember, in our base cipher, Freemasonry is 59. In Hebrew, Freemasonry also sums to 59. So again, these ciphers, the little intricacies, they show you things that are additionally hidden within the language. And again, Francis Bacon, in case you don't know, he was the right-hand man to King James, responsible for the colonization scheme. They say without Francis Bacon, there might have never been a United States of America. And some people say that William Shakespeare is actually Francis Bacon. That's a theory that's out there. And if you haven't typed in the name William Shakespeare, you might find that that name equals 187 in our base ciphers. All right, everybody clear on the Sumerian gematria? It's interesting. Aaron said he had a head injury once too. He just got here and he said he had something similar to seeing shapes and objects like sacred geometry. Just to get in on the conversation, I once hit my head really hard on the ground playing softball of all things. And it was the only time I ever saw stars. I never knew where that phrase "seeing stars" came from before I smashed my head on the ground. So yeah, there maybe there really is something to hitting your head, impacting your head, and having visions of things you've never seen before. So when I saw the stars, I had like this sparky. It was just like sparkles just in my vision. I could see what was in front of me, but these little bright spots all over the place. And I thought, oh, this must be what it means to see stars. So. Mary says she has problems getting all the numbers to line up like I do. Well, Mary, realize that I have a lot of practice, and the biggest asset I have going is that I've been working with this for 5 years straight. So I have a lot of recall about what certain numbers line up. And it's just like anything. The more you work with something, the more familiar you'll become with it. And if you haven't read the book yet, Mary, I think reading the book will probably get some numbers that are really stuck in there in your mind, and just ones that you can learn to recognize instantly that come up again and again in the regular news cycle. Okay. I believe, oh yeah. So the only other ciphers that we need to cover here, and then we'll take your questions and we can do some other things at the end of class, are septenary and Chaldean. And Again, when you click on a cipher, let me get rid of the Francis Bacon here. When you click on a cipher, it'll show you the way that cipher works. And the way septenary or septenary works is when you count up to 7. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, G is 7. Then you count back down. So you notice H becomes 6, I 5, J 4, K 3, L 2, M 1. Then notice what happens. The alphabet is essentially divided into 2 sections of 13. M's the 13th letter. So your second section of 13 begins at N. Then you begin counting back up. N is 1, O is 2, P is 3, Q is 4, R is 5, S is 6, T is 7. And then you count back down again. From there back down to 1, where Z becomes 1. So it's a pattern. And it's essentially, I'll ask Derek, I don't wonder if you zoom in if it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I think Derek, when he makes the chart for this cipher, if he can, he should have it that way, because I think it'd be easier for people to visualize and memorize that way. But this cipher is very interesting. The Chaldean cipher, you know, it's another cipher that Derek found out there that existed. I don't see the rhyme to this cipher, but this is another cipher where a lot of words will have overlap in both. And one of the things that jumped out right away when we started using these ciphers was Washington, D.C., summed to 47 in both. And we know from the base ciphers that this is the number in D.C. D.C. with the reverse alphabetic order 47. Government 47, authority 47, White House, president, Republican, Democrat, they all sum to 47. And another word that sums to 47, again, as a reminder, is beast. Beast. Think about the Washington Monument that's 666 feet tall when you count how far it goes below ground. 666, the number of the beast. Don't forget how the Washington Monument also pays tribute to the New World Order, and how New World Order and number of the beast have the same gematria value, just using the alphabetic order. So again, there's all these ciphers floating around, and a lot of them have a lot of very interesting meaning. USA, for example, in the septenary cipher, 13. And out of these two ciphers right here, they're related, but this is the more interesting one, no doubt about it. Septenary, USA's 13, think about it. You know, the nation that began with 13 colonies with 13 stripes, where we all go to 13 years of public school programming. We don't learn many things that are actually that relevant to our life. We don't even learn about the numerical code behind the English language, which obviously is very relevant. I just imagine if I would have been taught this as a child, I guarantee you I would have just loved it. This would have been my subject, you know? So I loved mathematics. I used to wonder what it was about words and the certain spellings that didn't make sense. No U in the word 40. You know, this could have cleared it all up. But there's just all sorts of little nuggets in these ciphers when you experiment with them. And for example, for you football fans out there, if you type in Super Bowl, you'll notice in septenary it's 35. And if you type in football, you'll notice it's 35 in Chaldean. Look at the first score of the first Super Bowl. It was won with 35 points. You know, in our base ciphers, the number from the NFL that connects to 35 is QB, the abbreviation for the quarterback. But another thing that jumped out to me when I first learned this cipher was this right here. African American sums to 44 in the septenary cipher and 43 in the Chaldean, and I couldn't help but think of Obama in light of that, because Obama was number 44, but he was only the 43rd person to be president, and he became the 44th president-elect on November 4th, 2018, a date with 43 numerology, 11 plus 4 plus 20 plus 18. And he did so in the land of Lincoln, where a lot of things with Lincoln had to do with 43, including Civil War. Just in our base cipher, our most pure cipher, Civil War, it's 43. So again, these ciphers are definitely relevant. if there were some ciphers that you just wanted to study alongside your base 4 decode, I would highly recommend, adding these two on and just observing as you decode, because there'll be a lot of things that make you go, aha, wow, that's interesting, that will pop out with these ciphers. And again, I think that's the best way to study these ciphers. Just take time, realize you got a lot of years ahead of you, study the base 4 because that's what you want to master. But then as you go along, some other good ciphers to tuck in to have some know-how are these ones. The clocks changed? Did they really? Is it time to fall back? I got to double check that. Crystal Rain says she wants to start decoding some music. I would love that, Crystal. Please do. There's not really any women doing these gematria decodes. There was I'll tell you what, there was a girl who came along about 2 years ago, and she got into this, and her family disowned her and said this was like witchcraft and evil, and she was making some YouTube videos at the time, but then she thought that she'd mastered the knowledge, and she made this really, really big prediction for a date. And I said, I don't know if I would do that, because if you're telling your family that that's going to happen on that date and it doesn't, then they're going to think even less of you. And, her prediction did not come true. And then she ended up making a video saying that, gematria was actually a bunch of nonsense, and she was fooled for a minute. She thought it was something, but obviously it was nothing. Otherwise, her prediction would have been true. And it was sad for me to witness at the time, because I thought, man, this would have been great to have a woman out here doing the work and spreading the knowledge. And, she just got ahead of herself too fast. And I'm sure the pressure from her family didn't help anything. But the point is, I would love for, some women to start making videos and spreading this knowledge, and just more people, period. Not just women, but just all people. So Lex says he wishes he knew this as a child too. He would have loved this subject. Yeah, I'm sure it's true for a lot of us. And I'm sure for a lot of people who don't like math, it would have made the subject a whole lot more interesting. Crystal, you don't really need the best software to record a video. For example, I'm pretty sure you can see my screen right now. If you have QuickTime, all you have to do to make a video, if you have QuickTime and your computer has a microphone and a camera, all you have to do is open up QuickTime and just do File, New Screen Recording, and then just click the button and click again. And watch when now that lit up, now this is a video now. So everything I'm saying is recorded, and then when you're done, you just click this up here, and you can just save your video. You just close it and just save it as whatever you want, and then you can upload it. It's really that simple. So another thing you can download is OBS, and it does the same thing. And it actually probably runs a little bit smoother than QuickTimes, and OBS is free to download. Yeah, Tesla. We talked about Tesla in 3, 6, and 9 in hold on. Coming back to our ciphers here. We talked a little bit about Tesla in 3, 6, and 9 the first week. I used to have a video on my older channel that got deleted. The name Tesla in Jewish gematria is 216. What is it? Hermeticism. Hermeticism in Jewish gematria is 369. And remember, Hermeticism, one of the principles is the principle of vibration, where every number carries a vibration. Tesla said there was a magic to these numbers, He was talking about that Hermetic knowledge. And those were his numbers, 369. So, anyhow. So here, just real quick for Crystal, the way OBS works, if you want to make a video, is you just open it up. And once it opens, if you just click start recording, it's the same thing. So just boom, like that, you're recording. So right now a video is being made for OBS. And when you stop, I have a Mac, what it does is it saves the file as soon as you stop automatically to your movies folder. So I'm sure if you're on PC, there's some folder where all videos get saved, and you can just do a quick web search for where OBS saves on your operating system. But very simple, very intuitive. Aaron says, Zach, would you agree that gematria is God's that they hijacked? Do you mean like God's language? It does seem that way. And when I first began this study, and I heard that there were these beliefs, and that I used to think all this stuff was silly, honestly, until I started researching it and observing, and then it just became undeniable. So I got humbled up a bit, and it made me even more passionate about the subject. And I said, oh, this must be the reason that they're coding things, They're like trying to play God over the world. And then, the more I learned, the more apparent it became that it was that way. So, you guys, we've gone over all of the ciphers tonight. If there's not any questions about the ciphers, we got at least 29 minutes of class time left. Just wanted to make sure that everybody has the different ciphers hammered down, how they work, and how to apply them to their research. If there's no questions, we can take on the question we had earlier. Somebody asked to look into a suicide of a certain person. But at first, I just want to make sure that we're all clear on how the ciphers work. The comedians are in the chat tonight. Let's roll. Did you want to decode that from the Flight 93 flight? Isn't that what they said on Flight 93? Let's roll. Got that 113 behind it. Notice it's a 113. Look at Let's Roll, and look at Scottish, as in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Let's Roll in Scottish, the exact same in all ciphers. Yeah, you can always catch up. You can catch up anytime. That's the beauty. All these videos are going to stay up here. Okay, so we want to look at Stuart Adamson's death. We will do that as promised. William Stuart Adamson, you got it. But hold on, I got to make sure I got William's question here. He writes, I know sometimes you have to reel people in on the sports decodes because it gets too abstract. At what point do you see something as abstract? Oh, I know what you're saying. It's like, a few weeks ago, a guy called in and, okay. A few weeks ago, a guy did call in and he started doing the decode, and he was saying that, and this is the number of the Bavarian Illuminati. I was like, oh, I don't know if I would connect it to the Bavarian Illuminati because that's not exactly pertaining to the football game. But then what was funny is he ended up being right. And after I saw that he was right, I said, well, I guess the reason he was right about the Bavarian Illuminati being connected to this season's decode is because this is the 99th NFL season, and the Bavarian Illuminati was established on a date with 99 numerology. So I thought that he was too abstract in that moment, and I did say that on the radio show. But then I had to eat some humble pie because he was right and I was wrong. That said, I do say it to other people sometimes, because sometimes they'll start saying things like, they'll be like, okay, this team can get their 57th win, and if you write out this set of words, just when people start writing out words that really don't pertain to the football game and getting numbers from those words and then using that for the decode. For example, there's a guy out there named Tony Tell It Like It Is, who's my worst gematria student ever. He learned from me, but he doesn't do it gematria like me. He makes the subject look terrible. But he's always doing that. He's writing sentences and then pulling the words out of those sentences and saying a sports team is going to win because of that sentence. To me, that's way too abstract. So it's better to just stick to the words that pertain to the subject, such as the sports game, such as the team name, the city, the coaches, the star player, the stadium, things that pertain to that season. Like who's the MVP of the World Series right now? Pierce, right? And it was the 114th World Series. So it's usually just right there on the surface, and you can usually find what you need just in the base ciphers. Who was the star player for the Dodgers in the 114th World Series? It was Max Muncy. And, just from looking at the base ciphers, you can really start to figure out some riddles. Somebody pointed out that this World Series, the Boston team beating the LA team was just like not that many years ago when the Boston team beat the LA team in the NBA Finals, and Paul Pierce of the Boston Celtics was the series MVP. He said it finished with the same amount of games, 4-1. He said Game 4 was a big comeback by Boston, just like it was in the World Series. So again, this is why you don't have to get too abstract with your decodes. You can just look at the information that's there on the surface and usually pull out some really big and impressive things. So I hope I answered that clearly enough. I mean, if you listen to my radio show, surely enough, somebody will call in no time that's, saying things, and I'll say, you know what, man, I love your creativity, but I think you're being a little too creative here. People will start doing things like it's hard for me to do it just off the cuff, but people will say like, okay, if you write out 57, it equals this, and then that equals that, and then if you write out this, that equals that. And they'll do like a chain of things. And I'll be like, you know what? I think you connected like too many things there that are a little bit arbitrary to reach the point that you wanted to reach. So I hope I'm coming through there with that. Yeah, we got 11 of 14 football games this week, and I got to tell you, man, I'm sore about it because as soon as we finished, I had this gut feeling that the Seahawks were going to win, and I almost made a video after changing the Seahawks pick, but I was like, no, I'm just going to ride it out, and sure enough, it was wrong, and yeah, anyway. Yeah, we didn't do bad, though. All right, so Crypto Skippy wants to look at the death of William Stewart Adamson, which is a death that I've never covered before. And I say, since tonight we're talking about the ciphers, let's look at it in the base ciphers, and then let's see if we can build anything on looking at the additional ciphers. So this is our example decode that's been suggested tonight. William Stewart Adamson. So this happened a while ago. All right. So just whenever I look at a death, I just start looking at the numbers and the date and just see if anything jumps out. December 16th. And then I'll just run the date numerology in my head. If you guys can add date numerology in your head, I think that's a good thing to practice. I think adding numbers in your head is a good thing to do with this study because it just strengthens your number skills. You know what's jumping out right away just reading about this guy also? I like to just start reading little notes. Look at what year their band rose to prominence. 83, right? The year Murder by Numbers came out. The word murder, 83. So that jumps out. Okay. So the day he died, 12/16, out of the date numerology that stands out to me, 12 plus 16 is 28. In our base ciphers, the word kill equals 28. I'm going to measure from the birthday. A lot of times before I decode words, I'll just look at all the numbers on the surface. So his birthday was April 11th, and he died in 2001, and he died on December 16th, 2001. So he died 250 days after his birthday. That's a span, or 249 days. Sometimes it's good to measure to the upcoming birthday too. He died 116 days shy of his birthday, or a span of 117 days. And it's always good to look at what age they were. He was born in 58, which means that he died at age 43. He was 43. Now, I believe that you said that this man supposedly committed suicide, right? I remember earlier this year we had a woman supposedly commit suicide in a rock band at age 43, and she died in Portland, Oregon, Rip City. But the word suicide has gematria 43, which we'll get to in just a moment. He founded a Scottish art punk band. Here, I just want to read about his death. Final years and death. Adamson was married twice. He had 2 children with his first wife, Sandra, in 1982 and 85. His son, Callum Adamson, is the guitarist of British band Ahab. In light of his son being in a band, it might be worth looking into too. In 1996, Adamson split with Sandra and moved to Nashville. There he married his second wife, Melanie Shelney. All right. He was reported missing on November 26th. So I want to look at that in terms of his birthday too, the day that he was reported missing. So that happened on his 137th day of his age. And look at where he was. He was in Tennessee. Wait a minute. Was he in Tennessee when that happened? Hold on. He was reported missing November 26, 2001. At the time, the couple had been estranged for 6 weeks, and Melanie filed for divorce on the day he disappeared. That's interesting. Adamson had been due to face drunk driving charges in March 2002 and had been ordered to attend Alcoholics Anonymous. He was an alcoholic and had resumed drinking after having been sober for over a decade. On the 16th of December 2001, his body was found in a closet in his room at the Best Western Plaza in Honolulu, Hawaii. So, okay, if he died in Tennessee, his body was transported to Hawaii. That's doubtful. But according to police, Adamson had hanged himself with an electrical cord from a pole in the wardrobe. An empty wine bottle was found in the room. At the time of his death, Adamson had a blood alcohol content of 0.279%. So just in light of him being in Tennessee, which is a big music state, and him disappearing 137 days, that stands out to me a little bit. Again, 137 is the 33rd prime number. If you don't count the full span of days, he disappeared 136 days after his birthday, which is the 16th triangular number. And I noticed he died on the 16th of December, or at least that's when his body was found. 16 also has that relationship with 33, like how 137 is the 33rd prime. So I just start to make notes like this when I decode to see if there's a larger pattern here. In light of his death having to do with alcohol, they're saying he was an alcoholic who needed to attend Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcohol also has this gematria 33. There was a country star in the 80s. I can't think of his name right now, but supposedly he had an alcohol problem too. And if I remember right, he died 33 days from his birthday. So just some initial notes here. It is interesting that he disappeared 136 days after his birthday, or 137th day of his age. And again, he was 43. Now, coming back to our ciphers, suicide as the gematria 34, when you take into account the exception for S, suicide's 43, like how old he was when he died. And as we also know, just in our base ciphers, killing is 43. Okay, so 43, dead of suicide, the supposed blame cause of death. When Chris Cornell, the rock star, recently died, at first they said that he died on May 17th, which is the 137th day of the year, for just another parallel between musicians and hangings. The next thing to do is to decode his name. So, William Stewart Adamson, and he went by Stewart Adamson. So let's just look at it. And I always like to look at a name piece by piece. Adamson. Well, the name has that fateful gematria of 67, one that shows up around death a lot. Blood sacrifice 67. Actually, hold on. Before we go on with the name decode, the other thing I want to know here is how many days is it from November 26th to the day that he was found dead? Oh, hold on. I see that I made, hold on. Okay, we have to go back here. From the day he disappeared to the day he was found dead was 20 days later. That's one of our big numbers with death. Death is 20, time is 20, cross is 20, seasons, the cross symbolizes the seasons. So he's found dead 20 days after he disappears. That's suspicious. I realized the mistake I made was from his date of disappearance to his upcoming 44th birthday was the 137 days. From his last 43rd birthday, which we should also check, was 229 days, which is the 50th prime number. There's also a span of 230 days. But then to his upcoming birthday was the 137. Okay, got it. So, Adamson. Let's come back and look at his name. Adamson. What was it? William Stewart Adamson. Stewart. William. William's got that gematria 79 and 34, like murder in the same ciphers. I'm just going to look at William Adamson. Okay. William Stewart Adamson. Full name has that 74. What do you know? And Stewart Adamson, what he went by. Stewart Adamson has the 86 like blood sacrifice, and Adamson alone was also 67. So he's got fateful name gematria. He's got the numbers that we commonly find in the people who have these suspicious deaths. 67 and 86. We see it again and again and again. He was the co-founder, lead vocalist, and guitarist of rock group Big Country. So we should also look, in light of his band, what stands out. Big Country. Remember how Big Country, we just talked about how the day he disappeared was 137 days from his upcoming 44th birthday, the kill number, or if you didn't count the span, 136 days. So he disappeared 136 days before his 44th birthday. Again, let's just get that up here. April 11, 2002, 136 days. Big Country, 136. So this is what I mean. You decode the layers, and of course, as you take notes, it's easier to keep track of it all. So already we see a lot of things that jump out. His name has the gematria blood sacrifice. His disappearance in connection to his upcoming 44th birthday syncs with the band he was in. He died on a date with numerology at 28, kill 28. Also, for just another point about 28, ritual sacrifice equals 107, which is the 28th prime number. I forgot to look at November 26th to see how many days that leaves in the year. November 26th leaves 35 days left in the year. It's the 330th day of the year. Okay. And you know what else about November 2601, you guys? Because this was 01. 11 plus 26 plus 01 is what? 38. So he disappeared on a date with 38 numerology. Death 38. Then he's found dead 20 days later in a closet. So, I don't know enough about this musician or this band, but the next thing you would want to do is start looking at, what happened to the band, who was the biggest beneficiary of his death. Did somebody's solo career come out of this? Because oftentimes these deaths in the entertainment industry are in connection to other people. It's that Svengali thing. And hey, speaking of which, I just thought about that. Sometimes I have to think about things. November 26th, we just saw that it was the day leaving 35 days left in the year. Remember, This is that word for the evil behind the industry. Svengalian, the most pure cipher, 35. Svengali is symbolized with a spider because it has to do with a web of evil. Spider's 35. So this looks like another example of Svengali. Yeah, I'm sure we could go a lot deeper with this, but we've already found some pretty condemning things. So remember, your foundation for decoding is always get the date numerology of the date of the death, measure from the birthdays, measure from the last birthday to the upcoming birthday, consider the age of the person, look at what they're known for, a band, a sports team, a movie, an album. The clues are always found within those things. If you just look at those things, you're always going to find a collection of information that's super relevant. Come back to the chat here. Closet equals 20. Good job. Closet also equals 74, like his full name. His full name was 74, you know? Closet's also 34, like suicide. He was 43 years old, 34, the reflection of 43. So yeah, look at the details of the story. Closet, great thing to decode because his body was found in a closet. We can look at the where he died too, the Western Plaza Hotel. You know, sometimes the coding is really specific. The Western Plaza Hotel. 229. We just saw that from his last birthday. His last birthday to his disappearance was his 229th day. And then look at that. The name of the hotel, Western Plaza. Oh, wait a minute. I'm wrong, you guys. I had an extra I there. My bad. Thought we found something. But, you know, what does stand out there is Western Plaza Hotel is 86. Also like his name, the blood sacrifice number. So his full name 86? Or was it just Stuart Adamson? Was it his artist name? So Stuart Adamson 86, the hotel name 86, blood sacrifice 86. Makes you wonder if it was like Weekend at Bernie's, you know? Honolulu, Hawaii, you could also look at that. Well, okay, so right away, we already connected the 137 piece with his disappearance, which is the 33rd prime. Hawaii is one of 3 states with it that in this cipher sum to 33. And then Honolulu, Hawaii. Look at that too. Honolulu, Hawaii, 74, like its full name. So the more you decode, the more pieces of the puzzle you'll put together. I guarantee there's something here. U2's The Edge delivered the eulogy at Adamson's funeral, which was held at Carnegie Hall. Told the mourners that Big Country wrote the songs that he wished U2 could write. We just got to look. The Edge was born 8/8. As we were decoding a second ago, an 88 popped up here. This happens to me when I decode because sometimes I won't write down everything and I'll be like, damn, what was that? I know I just saw an 88 up here. But let's just look. August 8th to November 26th, the disappearance. That was 110 days or a span of 111. And then his body ended up getting found in Hawaii, which also has the 111 gematria. Okay. Good number for a musician there. August 8th, or good birthday. 88 keys on the piano. Let's see. The Edge. What's his full name equal? David Hal Evans. David Evans has that 38 gematria. Have to look more at the band U2. What's their lead singer, Bono? There's got to be something greater there. Because usually when they have these people deliver these public statements, they're usually the one that the ritual's for. So You too. Looks like you guys are doing some great work in the chat. Very good. It's fun decoding with a group of people because then you got a bunch of minds working at the same time. And that's why I just hope someday that enough funding comes in for this to truly start like an organization where people work in a room together and share thoughts and communicate and have community. I just imagine what it would be like with a room of 10, 15 people dedicated to this research, competent in this research, putting their heads together and seeing what they discover. So the only thing we didn't do is I said, let's look at some of the additional ciphers that we've covered tonight. And perhaps we'd find the thing there with you too if we did that. But let's go back to the musician who died. Big Country. So I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to look at all the ciphers and just see if anything jumps out about the band name in terms of numbers we already looked at. So nothing's staring me in the face about the band name. The Kabbalah ciphers do have the 156 connection with the band name. And remember, when you write out 33, it's 156. That's sort of interesting. How about his surname, Adamson? Anything there with our additional ciphers? In Jewish, his surname equals 216. The product is 6 times 6 times 6. Again, Hawaii has that 666 gematria. So sort of interesting. If I was making a video, I probably wouldn't cover these details because just using the base ciphers, we're able to get the vast majority of important information. Stuart Adamson. What was the name of the hotel where he was found dead again? The Western Plaza Hotel. In the Chaldean cipher, that hotel has the gematria 74, like his name, like Honolulu, Hawaii. Using the exceptions on Western Plaza Hotel, it has that gematria of 149, which is the 35th prime number. Remember, he disappeared on the day, leaving 35 days left in the year. The number that goes with the Svengali, that industry evil. Talked a lot about that with Aretha Franklin and Elvis Presley. Guitar City. What's Guitar City? The store? Is that the name of that store that sells guitars? Robin Williams definitely killed. Do you remember what day Robin Williams died? August 11th. Death, 118 in Jewish gematria. 11/8. Me and Robin Williams had the same birthday. I always love Robin Williams, man. That guy is really funny. Good Morning Vietnam is one of my favorite movies of all time. So Francis Lumley points out, Zach, the Taylor Oil Company had an oil spill during Hurricane Ivan in 2004. The spill was never stopped. The founder died and the company set up a trust for $666 million. Yeah, mocking us. You were looking at the woman who married Tommy Lee. I don't know enough about it. I don't know who married him, but I'm sure it is interesting. I see the joke. Yeah, a lot of celebrity deaths with hanging over the years. It was Chris Cornell, and then on Chris Cornell's birthday, it was the singer from what's that band called? Chigozy Truth was here; he would know. I can't think what they're called. In the end, it doesn't even matter. Song. What are they called? Ah, I can't think. Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park. And then Chris Cornell's death had the parallels to the death of what's his name? The band that changed their name to New Order after he died. I can't think. But both of them, similar deaths, similar numbers, both hanging. Carnegie Hall, 55. Good job. That connected. That was a number in our decode. Number of his name. It was always said you two caught the big boat that you two or big country missed. Huh. I feel like U2 was pretty big before 2001. They're one of those bands that have always been getting that radio play. All right, Hickok, I'm looking forward to it. Oh yeah, Michael Hutchins' death is in my book. You want to look at his death real quick? It's in the book. Yeah, he was another hanging death, or maybe you were just bringing that up instead of saying you want to look it up. But yeah, he was another hanging. Oh, and supposedly Michael Hutchins accidentally killed himself, right? Supposedly he was doing that thing where you cut off your oxygen while you're playing with yourself. Yeah, his death has a lot of parallels with Chris Cornell's death. I did videos on that at the time. Let me see. Where's my book at? Oops. Here we go. Michael Hutchins died November 22nd, 1997. So, if you haven't read my book, again, there's a lot of celebrity deaths in here. Michael Hutchins was born Michael Keelan John Hutchinson, a name having gematria of 118, corresponding with death. Again, in Jewish gematria, death equals 118. Even more fateful, he had birth numerology of 83, connecting to murder. He was the founding member and lead singer of the band In Excess, having ordinal gematria of 66. This matters because November 22nd, the date of his death, can be expressed 22/11, much like 2211, the 66th triangular number. Recall the word curse has gematria 66, and this was a big day for the Kennedy family and the Kennedy curse in history. On the date of his passing, it was 61 days before his 38th birthday, and during the 20th year of being with his well-remembered band established in 1977. Consider how the numbers 20 and 61 connect to time, and 20 and 38 connect to death. Also worth noting, the name Michael Hutchins has gematria of 138, and in rock history, on the 138th day of the year, two musicians have died from hanging, which was also the cause of death for Mr. Hutchins. Those two men were Ian Curtis of Joy Division, that's what I was just thinking of. Their band became New Order, who died May 18th, 1980, and Chris Cornell, who would die later in history, May 18th, 2017, 37 years apart. Like the age of passing for Michael. Michael sums to 33. Michael sums to 33 and 138. But what did I write here? Of course, Michael sums to 33, and 1122 made a fitting date for his ritualistic sacrifice, which in the end was blamed on him masturbating while at the same time purposefully cutting off his oxygen supply. This is known as autoerotic asphyxia, having gematria of 86, like blood sacrifice, and 103, the 27th prime number, connecting back to ritual. Thus, not only was he murdered, he was shamed. So, I remember that one of the actors from the 1984 movie died right around the same time Trump took office. That's in my book, too. The Western Plaza Hotel, 88, like the 88 Keys. Good job, Don. And then we got the man with the 88 birthday doing the eulogy. Oh, Nashville's named Guitar City. That makes sense. Good one. Miss Mildred, to answer your questions, those two things are related. Those two things are related. So it's not one or the other. This Svengali is definitely using the evil side of this Kabbalah code. Jill Allen, your chat is working. Thank you for joining the chat. We see your comments. The band The Blind Melon has a song called 3 is the Magic Number. The band Smashing Pumpkins has a song called 33. There's actually a lot of songs out there about numbers if you pay attention. I've tried messing with the top chat and the live chat, and it doesn't seem to make any difference for me. I don't know why that is. Okay, Jill, you got it. We will look at Jill's homework. Jill did her homework. Let me get it here. Here we go. Oh, where did it go? Here we go. Oh, yeah, that's right. I had to open it on my other computer because I don't have Word on this computer. On this computer, I don't have Word, but on my other one did. I had to open this up on my other computer to see this. But here, we can zoom it in like this. So here's Jill's homework. She did the last week's lesson. We were decoding elections, so she wanted to decode one that she took a peek at. And she called this The Predictive Programming of the Donald, John Lennon and the 38th Anniversary of Lennon being gunned down. The Ballad of Donkey Doug on the TV show called The Good Place aired on 10/25/18, the same date that Derek was expecting a major celebrity death. Season 3, Episode 6. The episode uses the names Donkey Doug and Donkey Dad to tie Trump and Lennon together using the 4-base ciphers with perfect overlays. We are told about Donkey Doug through one of the show's protagonists, Jason, for over 2 seasons. When we finally meet Donkey Doug, we learn he's not Jason's friend, but his dad. The show ends with Jason's father telling him that instead of calling him Donkey Doug, he can now call him Donkey Dad. So, Donkey Dad, the Donald. Perfect overlap, all 4 ciphers. Now the connection to Lennon and his assassination. Donkey Doug, John Lennon gunned down. The exact same in all 4 ciphers. The theme of death is further emphasized throughout the show. Jason, the son who is already dead, is trying to save his dad from going to hell or the bad place, but fails. His dad cannot be saved. More craziness below. Also another reference to John. The Ballad of John and Yoko, recorded April 14th, 69 and released May 30th, 69. On the B-side, Old Brown Shoe, this kind of syncs up with the Wounded Soldier song in the movie Wag the Dog. It sure does. If you guys have not seen the movie Wag the Dog, you have to watch that movie. Goodness, it mocks us so bad. But on the B-side, Old Brown Shoe, this kind of syncs up with the Wounded Soldier song in the movie Wag the Dog. Good old shoe. Here it is, The Ballad of Donkey Doug, Golden Gate Falling Down, the same in 3 of the 4 ciphers. And for the record, if you use the master numerology on the K for the Ballad of Donkey Doug, it would be 99 too, like Golden Gate Falling Down. Gulf of Tonkin and Old Brown Shoe, also the same in all 4 ciphers. So the assassination date of Lennon, December 8th, 1980, and the 38th anniversary, the numerology is as follows. Overlaps of Trump's birthday this year and the 38th anniversary of Lennon's assassination. So June 14th, 2018 and December 8th, 2018. The date numerology, very similar numbers. As you can see, just looking down the graph. I'm starting to think these writers are having fun fucking with us by using Derek's Gematrinator. At first I thought it was predictive programming, but now I'm not so sure. Besides, who can get close enough to gun him down? His wife? Now that would be funny. But that said, the numbers are too good to ignore. This show has the most in-your-face gematria I've decoded so far. More overlays, but I want to keep this short. So, great job there, Jill. I've never seen The Good Place before, but Jill, I don't know how many shows you've decoded, but when you become aware of this language, you just see how much of this there is in television all over the place. So, TV is just full of it. And on one hand, it's depressing that this is being done to us, but then on the other hand, being aware of the code, at least you can see that these psychopaths have a little bit of a sense of humor, but yeah, it is something else. Yeah, my email is gematriaeffectnews@gmail.com. That's correct. The dude who hung himself had 38 birth numerology as well. There you go. Even more. Yeah, Anthony Bourdain got it by the 86 code. Did you guys notice this year that there was a chef death on June 8th and August 6th? One of the most famous chefs in France died on August 6th after Anthony Bourdain, who's a chef, died on June 8th. Both dates can be written 8/6, Chef 86, like blood sacrifice. There were a lot of, the day Anthony Bourdain died, there were a lot of celebrity deaths in the news. David Carradine, I believe I've covered his death too, yeah. Yeah, Jill did a great job. Crystal with the compliment. You got it, Jill. Thanks for doing your homework. All right, you guys. Well, we covered the base ciphers tonight as well as the additional ciphers. I'm hoping you're all comfortable with them. Again, I recommend sticking to the base ciphers, but I wanted you to understand how the other ciphers work. And again, just experiment with the other ones bit by bit. But again, the majority of things you're going to find are in those base ciphers. They're by far the most important. So if you guys have more questions, we can cover them tonight. If you feel like you got enough gematria school, we can wrap it up. It's up to you guys. Zach, are you getting good use out of the very classy Trump pen holder? It is on my bookshelf. It is a nice accessory. I appreciate it. Thank you so much there, brother. I forgot that was on my bookshelf, and I had I invited some. If you guys don't know, I live in a retirement community right now. I'm the only person who's under 55 years old that lives here. I invited these people over, and I was showing them that room, and I noticed that the man was staring at the Trump pen holder. And you guys don't know what I'm talking about because you don't know what this Trump pen holder is. But the guy who sent it to me, who asked the question, does. I noticed the man was staring at it and not saying anything. And I just wondered what he was thinking. So anyway. Okay, so for today's homework, this is what it is. Again, read chapter 4 if you have not, and then next week, come up with your best example, your most interesting find, one using one of the alternate ciphers, not our 4-base ciphers. And if you have more than one great find, you're welcome to share more than one. But if you find just one, that would be awesome. And I would like to start next week's class by having people share those discoveries they made, a meaningful connection that they can explain for next week's class. So make sure you read chapter 4 if you haven't read it, and then do a little decoding and see what you find, some magical connection using these alternate ciphers that has some meaning. Oh, you want to look at the Golden Tate trade? We can. I'm not in a hurry to leave. We can look at it. If you guys want to sign off here, you're more than welcome to. Jeremy wants to look at the Golden Tate trade, so we'll do it. And yeah, looking forward to it, Crystal Rain. And looking forward to everybody's homework discoveries next week. That Clinton Dix is something else. I can't believe he's playing in the nation's capital now. It's just the mockery is too much. I'm pretty sure this is a. I wonder if it's his 7th season. That'd be something else. Do I publish these lessons? They just stay right here on the Patreon for now. They're exclusive content for the people who pay for the Patreon. So. Have a great week, Miss Mildred. Have a great week, everybody who's signing off. For people who want to sit tight, we'll go over the Golden Tate trade. So, first of all, I have to be sure what team he was traded to. Golden Tate. Oh, he went to the Eagles, huh? He went to the Eagles. So now he's been a Seahawk, a Lion, and an Eagle, if I'm not mistaken. All right. I can't wait to get him in here. So let's see. Let's just start with the birthday, huh? Golden Tate. August 2nd. So let's think about that in light of this season. This is the 53rd NFL season. Our number that has to do with the Vesica Pisces. Another number that has to do with it is 82. And he has this 8-2 birthday. And now he's going to Philadelphia, the home of the flag. And flag has this 82 connection as well. So these are the first things I'm thinking about. His birthday has a numerology of 117, 36. You know what else his birthday has numerology of? 8 plus 2 plus 88, 98. Last year, the Eagles won the Super Bowl, concluding the 98th NFL season. And we look back in history, every time the Eagles had won a Super Bowl before the not that they'd won a Super Bowl, every time that they'd won a championship before the Super Bowl era, they'd won it on a date with 98 numerology. So 98's been this important number to the Philadelphia Eagles history. Let's see how many days after his birthday this move comes. August 2nd. Whoops. August 2nd. I can't type. To today is a span of 90 days. If you don't count the span, it's 89 days, which is the 11th Fibonacci number. Big number there in football, 11. All right. Golden Tate. Let's look at his full name. Let's look at it piece by piece. Golden Herman Tate III. Is that what it was? The third? So, okay, Tate has the gematria 26. That's the real big flag number. Okay, so he's got that going. Herman. Golden's got that 57 connection, big Super Bowl number. Golden Tate. Golden Herman Tate III. Oh, there we go. It's the 99th NFL season. Now we're talking. Golden Herman Tate III in our most pure cipher 99. So, okay, we're starting to build some numbers. Let's they just traded him for a draft pick, so there's not another player to look at. The Philadelphia Eagles website has this phrase, I can't wait to get him in here. I can't wait to know what that means. I can't wait to get him in here. Is that what it was? I see some numbers that have some meaning. Gotta make sure I got it right. I can't wait to get him in here. Looks right. So 131 is a big old Super Bowl number. Super Bowl equals 131, so does championship. I want to see how many days this move comes after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was on February 4th, 2018. 38 weeks and 3 days. Okay. How about to the upcoming Super Bowl? Span of 97 days, which is also 96 days before the Super Bowl. 96. Oh, hold on. Before I get off this, the other thing that jumps out here is the 121 Philadelphia is named from Revelation 121. With regards to it being 96 days before the Super Bowl, Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, wait, am I wrong about that? I guess I'm. Oh no, I'm not wrong about that. That's what it is. You have to take into account the S. Philadelphia Eagles has that 96 connection. So, okay, we've measured from the birthday. We've measured from the last Super Bowl to the upcoming Super Bowl. This 13 weeks and 5 days to the Super Bowl is interesting too, in light of the Eagles being the defending Super Bowl champions. Fly, Eagles, fly has gematria of 135. Philadelphia was established on a date with 135 numerology. The Key of David, which is in Revelation, in the same place in the Bible that Philadelphia is named, has this gematria of 135. So it seems to me that this move is a tribute to the Eagles being the defending Super Bowl champions, but I don't think it means that they're going to appear in the Super Bowl. It's obviously synced up with the upcoming Super Bowl, but remember these rituals, they're often layered. So let's see what season Golden Tate's in. Golden Tate, career stats. See what year number he's in. Wait a minute. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. Hold on. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is his 9th season. 9th season, he's got the 99 gematria. See if there's anything that jumps out about his career stats at the time of this move. He finished his career in Detroit with 37 touchdowns. I love that. I love that right there. Detroit in the most pure Ciphers, 37. All right, Golden, you've scored enough. On to the next team. All right, so 9th season. I guess the other thing to look at is how he syncs up with his quarterback, who's Carson Wentz, whose birthday is December 30th. I know that because I decode football every week. 150 days. Off the top of my head, nothing's jumping about the 150. Oh, Philadelphia Eagles is 150. There we go. Nice. So from his birthday to his new quarterback's birthday is 150 days. That's cool. Philadelphia Eagles with the alphabetic order 150. All right, so there's some rhyme and reason to that. Just trying to think of some other things that I could, some other pieces I could be overlooking here. Those are the things that pop out at me for the moment. He's from Nashville, Tennessee. We played at Notre Dame Catholic school. I'll never forget when he played at Notre Dame. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was probably was 2009. Notre Dame ran the same play 3 times in a row, and it was just like, I was like, how isn't the defense catching on to this? They just do the same thing 3 times in a row. All 3 plays, the quarterback rolled out and threw it to Golden Tate, who was in the corner of the end zone each time. The first 2 times he did the play, it hit Golden Tate right in the hands, and he dropped it both times. They both should have been touchdowns. It was just like an easy catch. He dropped both of them. Third time, they run the same play, exact same place in the end zone. Golden Tate catches the ball and starts dancing like he's the greatest player in the world. And I just thought, dude, get off the field, man. You just dropped 2 wide open passes for touchdown. You caught it the third time. Who cares? And who's out there coaching? Because they just ran the same exact play 3 times on you 3 times in a row. and pulled it off essentially all 3 times. So, anyway, Golden Tate. He used to get bad press here in Seattle because he supposedly robbed a donut store. He didn't really rob it, but he stole from it. I guess they forgot to lock their door, and he went in there and took all the donuts or something like that. It's probably some propaganda. Yeah, Golden Tate does sound like Golden Gate. That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Warriors are from Philadelphia originally. Golden has the racist coding too, huh? There's no surprise there. That's right. The Lions are in their 89th season. That's a good point. Yeah, that was part of the reason we thought 2 weeks ago the Lions were going to fall to 2-4, but that didn't work out for us. Yeah, the music frequency change is a very interesting thing. Frequency. And then that 440 is a lot like 44, this number that's connected to a lot of damaging things. It just makes you wonder. Tate the third is also 53. That's a good catch there, Jeremy. Pennsylvania's 53. The Euro Super Bowl 53. Manitoba, Canada. Yeah, Doug Peterson does have that January 31st birthday. We were looking at that last year. Tate equals 206, huh? What cipher is that in? That was a good use of the bonus ciphers. In Jewish. Huh. Yeah, Golden Tate was drafted by Seattle, the 206 area code first. It is true. There's how those bonus ciphers work. Great job, Jeremy. Yeah, I think they do have an army of stuff working all this stuff out. I think there's a lot of people. Imagine if imagine if 10 of us were assigned to do all the scripting for the NFL. We could easily handle it. You got 10 people for each sport league. You got, you know, you got a group of people figuring out your news propaganda for the year. It's all very easily done. I mean, when you realize that the secret societies that are responsible for this have been around for a long time and are massive, it's not hard to see how they achieve it. They do have the manpower. Israeli disguise. Wait, what is it? I don't get it. Israeli disguise. I must have missed the comment. Somebody said they did the same thing last year with Gronkowski. Yeah, I don't know why it always advertises that next to my book, that shot glass with the word Jesuit on it. I don't know what's up with that, but I notice that too when I look at my book, that thing's always for sale there. You know what it probably is? It's probably because in the chapter index of my book, in the description, one of the chapters has the word Jesuit in it. So maybe in the search, it just pulls that Jesuit cup and puts it there because maybe it thinks they're related things in the way their search works. Huh. Healing frequency. I didn't know that. Donut snatcher. That's funny. Yeah, and that's another good point. I mean, at this day, to get the coding out, they can use AI, they can use computers. So, yeah, it's entirely possible. Valerie Jarrett. Yeah, that's another story. You can go back and use this knowledge and decode it. Number 1 Alabama versus number 3 LSU. Well, who do you think is going to get the better of that matchup? The old 13 squad there, Alabama. Oh, that's right. I got to put on the outfit, Hickok. I'll do that. I'll do that, man. Well, I just have to sleep less. I don't have any extra time, but a lot of people have been asking for more help with the basketball decode, so I just said, whatever. I'll just make the time to do it Thursday. But I mean, the fortunate thing for me is you guys are supporting me, so I have more than enough revenue to survive. And again, my bills are really low, so I'm just going to save all this money that comes in with the goal of building up this Gematria News Network. That's my whole dream right now. But the thing is, my lady, she just studies all the time, so her school's really demanding. So it's not like she's asking me to do so much. And now that we don't live in the city, she doesn't need me to take her out shopping and to all of our restaurants and all that. So anyway, I don't have a lot of things to do. So I got plenty of time to get a lot of this done. But yeah, I am overexerting myself even still. But this is how I'm able to create the time because this is the primary thing to do right now for me. So oh, good observation there about the NCAA basketball season. Okay, very cool. I do want to go to PA. I really want to do that, and I want to do that sooner than later. I want to do it before this story gets away. I want to go there and investigate. So I'll keep everyone posted. Tate had 37 career games for Notre Dame, huh? Funny. Um, Somebody said that I could try out on Amazon the print on demand thing. It's something to think about. If I put it on Amazon, I'll go back and add a few more things that have happened. There's a few things that I've learned that I really want to put in the book before it's in paper form that I didn't know when I finished writing it. They're not big things, but I just feel like they have to be in there now that I know them. So yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to go to all those places. I want to go to that Tree of Life synagogue, and I won't be rude to these people. I'll just say, look, I want you guys to, I want to see the evidence that this happened. But yeah, I want to go to that synagogue. I want to go to that place a half mile away where they had the active shooter drill earlier this year. I want to go to that police station and talk to Deputy Kevin Kraus. And then I want to go to the mayor's office. And I just also want to interview people in the community. So, and I would love to do a live stream in front of the Tree of Life, going over everything again. Yeah, we got to start pounding the pavement. I mean, I've been doing it, like the keyboard warrior for 5 years now, trying to make things happen on the street and get resources to make it happen. And right now at this moment, I have more resources to do it than I've had in the past. Still not able to fund the Gematria News Network army that needs to happen, but maybe if we pound the pavement, we'll get the word out there and get more people to support. So the other thing I'm thinking about doing here in the near future is starting the Gematria Research Institute, start a nonprofit and try to raise money and then use that money to hire people to help with the decodes and building, databases and things like that. So take time off this weekend. There's no time on the weekend to take off. I mean, yeah, I wish I had more time. So, all right, you guys, I think we had a good lesson here. Hope you appreciated it. I will be back on, I'll be back tomorrow. I got the radio show tomorrow night. Thursday night, we're doing basketball decodes. People want to help with the decoding the basketball games. And Friday night, we got Friday night sports decode lives. And then Saturday, we got NFL decoded live. So we got a full week here. And I don't know where the Patreon's at right now. We had some people drop off here. I guess they weren't satisfied. But When we get up to this number here at 950, every day I'm going to start having an hour-long podcast here Monday through Friday, which it won't be that won't be too hard to do because I'm pretty much just doing that already on YouTube, but I'm just going to start doing it here exclusively since these are the people who are supporting the cause. So gematria athletes deserve more than pro ball tossers. Yeah, I wish, Tom. Probably a long way off from that. But just think about that. I mean, think about like what these athletes make in a year. You know, some of these guys with their $20 million contracts. Imagine how far we could take the gematria research with just one of those contracts. If we had $20 million to finance, you know, I mean, how many? Let's just think here. I just want to think about the math on that for a second. Where's a calculator at? Let's say we took a $20 million salary. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we had 30 gematria employees. It's funny. Look at that. Man, you would get paid $666,666 a year. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? So that means we could like literally have 300 employees and make a good salary. That's why it's just insane what these athletes get paid. I didn't realize it was going to be all sixes when I first did the math, but yeah, at $20 million a year, you could pay 300 people $66,666. That's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it. All right, you guys. Glad you appreciated the lesson. Thanks for the compliment, Richard. We'll be back next week. Gematria school every Tuesday night. But yeah, that was funny. I didn't realize the math was going to work out that way. But I mean, still, we made the point. These guys, some of them make $20 million a year. You could pay 300 people a healthy salary. Crazy for something a whole lot more relevant. Hey, very welcome, Miss Mildred. Great to have all of you here. All right, you guys. Hope you have a good night or a good day wherever you are in the world. And we'll be in touch soon enough. You take care.